It is now my honor to deliver my final remarks as the COP President.
Kindly be seated. Kindly be seated and let's observe some silence so that we may proceed. Thank you very much.
Señor Presidente, Vuestras Excelencias, distintos delegados, señoras, señores, bom dia, bem-vinda ao Belém. It is an honor to address this forum as COP President one last time, and a pleasure to meet back in Brazil, where the convention began. This country has given us so many beautiful things. It is the land of the Amazon rainforest, the land of Machado de Assis, Jorge Amado, Paulo Coelho, and legendary Pelé, and now the land of COP30. I must express my deepest gratitude to those who made the journey from Baku to Belem possible. First, I must thank the President of Azerbaijan, His Excellency Ilham Aliyev. His leadership and ambition to bring COP to the Caucasus and advance regional cooperation is bringing us the benefits of green energy and even the green shoots of peace. To the entire COP29 team, our negotiators, the high-level and youth climate champions, the operations team, and the people of Azerbaijan. To the Secretariat, to our Troika partners from the United Arab Emirates and the Brazilian COP30 presidency. And the new COP president, my dear friend André Correa de Lago, we are deeply grateful for your support. Dear friends, every year we face challenges, and COP29 in Baku was no different. Our region understood the need for action because we face many environmental crises, from the shrinking the Caspian Sea to melting glaciers and creeping deserts. So we need to unite in common purpose, and we needed to make multilateralism work. We were proud to play the role of honest broker, pushing for the highest possible ambition. We invested in many new friendships. Our president told us that we have a moral duty to support seeds and LDCs. So we made sure that communities on the front lines of the crisis were at the center of our work. And in the end, we delivered many critical outcomes. But we faced one challenge, much greater than others, getting a deal on climate finance. Many said we could never get it done. Recently, negotiators in the rooms have fallen at the final hurdle. To land a deal, we would have to call upon the spirit of Rio, Kyoto, Paris, and Dubai. In the end, we secured the historic Baku finance goal. This was the UN largest ever pledge, and it will guide how we support the Global South during the next decade. We understand that the goal was not everything for everyone. We know it was hard. Difficult times demand difficult decisions. But it was a make or break moment and the litmus test for the Paris Agreement. Failure would have shaken the multilateral system at a dangerous moment. So we humbly thank everyone who agreed that it was essential to move forward. After such difficult negotiations, now there can be no excuses. We asked vulnerable communities to accept the limits of how much support they could expect. Now, in equal measure, we insist that donors deliver in full, with developed countries taking the lead. The changing world is no excuse for backtracking. We already knew that the world was changing when we agreed the goal. Many used these changes to justify not going further. They cannot be used again as a reason for not meeting commitments. And this comes at a critical moment as countries are submitting their latest climate plans, because every plan has a price tag. And delivering the Baku finance goal will be essential to success. Countries cannot cut emissions or protect communities if they cannot count on capital. Going backwards in the first year of the new goal would clearly be against the spirit of the agreement. It would undermine the entire process. It would leave communities underfunded and unprotected. We will therefore work to keep the Baku finance goal on the global agenda. As an outgoing presidency, this is our solemn duty. By fulfilling past promises, we restore faith in the system. We prove that building more agreements is not in vain. We dismantle the distract that we have seen too often, and we restore COP's sense of purpose. But the history of holding donors to account for the 100 billion is a disappointing one. It was raised at these podiums many times by many leaders, and we are forced to find more creative ways to make our points. So let me try this. Today, we are presenting donors with this invoice, which you can find on our COP29 media channels. This covers that donors have already promised. It includes the essential milestones that will keep us on track. First, we must double adaptation finance. This was due to the end of 2025, and the deadline is almost upon us. So developed countries must use every moment remaining to close the gap. Second, we need to triple the UN climate funds by 2030. This was a key demand of small island development states, and we all agreed. So we need substantial contributions to each fund's next replenishment round. The invoice concludes with the 300 billion promised by 2035. And in the same way, we expect countries to publish 10 years of plans in their NDCs and NAPs. We also expect donors to publish their plans for how they will deliver their fair share at 300 billion over these years. At COP29, we set out a vision to enhance ambition and enable action. Now it is time to enact the pact. These were collective agreements, but delivery depends on individual acts, country by country. And moving forward, given that countries already agreed that there should be balance between adaptation and mitigation, and the NCQG triples the previous 100 billion goal, we believe that it is only logical that we can set a target to triple adaptation finance. Dear friends, public finance is the backbone of the Baku finance goal, and there can be no distraction from donors' duties to deliver. But we all must embrace the muchirao. We need everyone to move forward in every possible direction. That approach inspired the Baku to Belem roadmap. It can now serve as central reference for our work. And it was shown that the bus pay to 1.3 trillion is possible, but it demands political will and global action. Dear friends, it's a great honor to join a long line of former COP presidents. Building on the legacies of the COP to the next is essential. In Baku, we started to take the next logical steps to deliver the UAE consensus. And in Belém, we must make progress on the Baku finance goal. But this handover between co-presidencies is different. And it is special, because last year we closed the Paris rulebook. We finished a decade-long chapter. And with the NCQG, we set a framework for how to support developing countries over the next decade. So we are now entering the first full implementation cycle of the Paris Agreement. This is a new era, It is a decade that demands delivery, not debate. And with this gavel, my dear friend André will open this first full COP of implementation. But on the eve of this new era, we can see that some people still find themselves in a moment of doubt. They see challenges to multilateral cooperation. They question whether we can deliver. But we hold an annual climate summit to remind everyone that they are not alone in facing these obstacles. To everyone in this room and to everyone listening outside it, you are not alone. You are all part of an unstoppable wave that keeps building momentum. Every community fighting for survival, every young person demanding a future, every business is investing in solutions, and we are far greater than the challenges we face. Brothers and sisters, Azerbaijan is still with you. Our team is still here. Myself, Yalchin, Nermin, Nigar, Leila, Umaira, Rashad, Elchin, Elmattin, and all the rest of us are still standing shoulder to shoulder with you. Together, let us show the world how many of us there are. Let us back Brazil and embrace the mutual. Let us fulfill our promises, and let us deliver this COP of implementation in solidarity for a green world. I thank you. Muito obrigado. Boa sorte.
Good luck.
As the COP29 presidency, Azerbaijan faced an extraordinary task: to bring countries together to deliver real results. But we faced many global challenges: conflicts, elections, economic crises. And we had our own problems. The Caspian Sea is shrinking. Our glaciers are melting. Our people are under threat. But our mission was clear. Our president told us to stand with the most vulnerable, those who did least to cause this crisis but suffer most, and to unite everyone's solidarity for a green world. The COP29 presidency worked tirelessly. We hosted open dialogue. We set out a plan to enhance ambition and enable action. And we welcomed you to Baku with tens of thousands of participants, 80 world leaders, for the second largest COP in history. We worked day and night, and there were moments when success seemed out of reach. But in the final hours, we landed a deal. The centerpiece, the Baku finance goal, was the largest financial commitment in UN history. Donors promised to mobilize $300 billion per year by 2035, and we set our sights on scaling up to 1.3 trillion from all sources. But we also made progress on every front, with breakthroughs on loss and damage, adaptation, and transparency. We unlocked carbon markets worth up to $1 trillion a year by 2050. Major economies announced deep emissions cuts. Every G20 nation now has a net zero goal. Over 130 countries signed the COP Truce Appeal, and we ran an action agenda to deal with everything from energy storage to methane and water. COP29 closed with the Baku Climate Unity Pact, proof that even in divided times, we can unite for a shared future. Since then, we have worked with Brazil to draw the Baku to Belem roadmap and hold everyone to the promises they made at COP29. Now, we gather again in Brazil, where the UNFCCC was first signed, and in the heart of the Amazon. The task is clear. Back Brazil, fulfill our promises, give a green light to green investment, and keep moving forward in solidarity for a green world.
Dear delegates, I would like to invite you to turn the sub-item 2A of document CP/2025/1, Addendum 1, election of the President of the Conference of the Parties at its 30th session. In accordance with the Rule 22, Paragraph 1 of the draft Rules of Procedure being applied, the office of the President is subject to rotation among the 5 UN regional groups. We continue the cycle with a President from the Latin American and Caribbean states. I am honored to propose that the Conference elects by acclamation His Excellency André Aranha Correa de Lago as President of the Conference for the Parties at its 30th session. It gives me great pleasure to declare His Excellency André Aranha Correa de Lago elected President. I congratulate His Excellency Correa de Lago on his election. Allow me again to wish him every success in guiding the work of the conference. I would like to invite His Excellency de Lago to take his seat at the podium.
Bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone. Very welcome to the beautiful Belém. Mr. President of the Republic, Lula da Silva, Special Envoy for Women for COP30, President of the Senate, on behalf of whom I welcome all the Parliament members that are here joining us. I would like to commend the Minister of Justice on his behalf, the ministers here present, and naturally, my dear Babayev, who had so many kind words in relation to myself, and my dear Simon, Executive Secretary of UNFCCC. I would like to acknowledge a few people as of now, starting with the Governor of the State of Pará, Helder Barbalho. It is wonderful to see your pride in being the Governor of Pará. This is extraordinarily contagious. I also would like to commend the governors present. And I also commend the mayors here present on behalf of the mayor of Belem, who's also here with us. The presence of governors and mayors is extremely important because subnational entities play a central role in implementing the decisions of the COPs. And also the presence of all Parliament members, together with governors, with courts, shows the fact that Brazil is gathered together around the agenda of COP30. And I believe it is highly important for the world to see that there is in Brazil such a gathering and union of all instances for an agenda that, as we all know, will be exceptional for the growth, generation of jobs, and improvement of people's lives. I would also like to thank all of those who have worked tirelessly to make COP30 happen, from the planning stages to some years to these days when we will spend so many hours in this venue. I would like to acknowledge that the works for the preparation and coordination of COP30 was in the hands of the Chief of Staff, Minister Rui Costa is here. I thank him and the whole team for the extraordinary efforts that I was witness to. I would also like to thank the high-level champion of Brazil, Daniospi, the champion of youth, Marcelo Oliveira, and I also want to mention the circles of COP presidency, amongst which we have Minister Sônia Guajajara, who is a chair of one of these. I would also like to commend the special envoys, Brazilian and foreign, who have followed me along this year, and the members of the councils of the COP presidency. Finally, dear friends, delegates here present, I cannot start by speaking of the Minister of Environment of Brazil, Minister Marina Silva, the head of the Brazilian delegation, an inspiration to so many people in this world. And you can rest assured, Minister, a great inspiration to the Brazilian presidency of COP. It is a great honor to assume the presidency of COP30. I have 43 years of diplomatic career, so I think I can understand the responsibility ahead, which is not small. not only during the 12 days of the conference, but also throughout the 12 months ahead of me as my mandate as the president of COP. In 1992, I was just a young diplomat working on the organization of Rio 92 conference, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, where the UN Climate Convention was born. I became fascinated with the topic at the time, with the possibilities that this agenda opened for the Brazilian diplomacy. I was also impressed by the talent of my fellow negotiators and their example decades later following me. And I think I am a very aware heir of this tradition of serving Brazil. I cannot express how proud I feel to serve my country. I would like to pay a tribute to all the colleagues who before me have taught me to make the things that I will try and do here in this COP under my presidency. We're gathered here to try and change things. I deeply believe that human beings are essentially good, but we know that they are capable of terrible things, such as war, which has unfortunately returned to threaten the lives of so many. Yet humankind has done and continues to do extraordinary things, and to think that we can improve people's lives is what inspires us. And despite recent setbacks, living conditions around the world can continue to improve. Science, education, and culture show us the way. And in the fight against climate change, multilateralism is the way. And even if I may be biased in speaking well of multilateral diplomacy, I will do so. With the Montreal Protocol, in 2.5 decades, we were able to eliminate 95% of the gases that cause the ozone layer hole, which is now healing. To remind you that the Paris Agreement 10 years ago came in a moment in which we were supposed to exceed 4 degrees of temperature. And now we know that we have reduced a lot, but we know that we have to work much more to reduce even more. This is a moment of many celebrations, but we have to be humble enough and realistic enough to know that there are still many things to be done. We're almost there, but we have to do much more. What has changed completely my perception about this process had to do with a sense of urgency. My background is in the defense of the interests of a country. Just like any of you here, we have to defend the interests of our countries. But urgency is the element that adds to it, which is something that is as present and that make us be reminded with sadness, such as this week in Brazil, in the state of Paraná, or in the Philippines, or a few weeks back in Jamaica. Our responsibility is immense. President Lula, I owe entirely to you the fact that I am sitting here today. I still do not fully know why I was chosen, but it might be because I could gather a wonderful team. And with this team, we are going to make what you expect us to do, always counting on your help, but I think you can count on us as well. During the mobilization process to prepare for the COP period, we were able that one word, which is an indigenous word in Brazil called mutirão, became a word in every dictionary. And it is through the mutirão that we are going to be able to implement the decisions of this COP and the previous ones. We want, and we have said many times, but we have to repeat, this is a COP that has to present solutions, and the action agenda that we have structured for this COP, of which we will have many ministers of state of Brazil and other authorities in multiple events with absolute essential dimension. This action agenda will show many pathways. Therefore, this is a COP of implementation. I hope it will be reminded as a COP of adaptation, a COP of advancing climate integration with the economy, activities, generation of jobs, and above all, a COP which will hear and believe in science. And in this sense, Mr. President, thank you for having found the ideal formula to define this COP, which is the COP of truth. Thanks so much, everyone.
Do I go there? Agora eu tenho que aprender.
Now, I need to learn how to be COP president, and thank God I have help right next to me.
Okay. Distinguished delegates, I now declare open the 7th session of the Conference of the Parties, serving as the meeting of the party.
Presidente Behara, tu Chabrico, President Lula, Brasil Behara, governador separar Behara Curi. Repetiu, piano careiro burumuyo. Pega o recover canhamo. Tem mura que ajuda, velho. Para, betini, one pé. Só que o árbitro reze enga. Careiro burumuyo, sei que pecuar que reze enga, bo.
I want to thank Regina, Joana, and Lucas from the Guajajara people from Brazil and this song that welcomes us in this territory, this amazing place where the guardians of the Amazon forest have kept for us until today. I am now, distinguished delegates, declare open the 20th session of the Conference of the Parties, serving as the meeting of the parties of the Kyoto Protocol. Distinguished delegates, I now declare open the 7th session of the Conference of the Parties, serving as the meeting of the parties to the Paris Agreement. Are we going to have the video?
É o momento de levar a sério os alertas da ciência. We need to face reality and decide whether we will have the courage and the necessary determination to change it.
And now, the moment has arrived. Belém is ready. Brazil is ready. From Rio to Paris, we have laid the foundations of the climate regime. Now, 10 years have passed since the Paris Agreement. The world has made progress, but at the same time, the world has changed. Climate urgency requires that we exponentially accelerate climate action. It's time to unite science, solidarity, and cooperation. It's time to deliver. Multilateralism and international cooperation are our only path. Science is our compass. Upholding them is our common mission, a mission that begins and ends with people. In agency, resistance, and imagination, let them be at the center of COP30. In Belém, the Amazon will be the stage for our global mutirão. It will bring together governments, civil society, and the private sector to fight climate change. Here, we must respond to urgency. Climate finance must find real solutions, and commitments must be transformed into results. Today, the eyes of the world are up on us, on our choices, our courage, and the impact of our decisions. In Belém, where the rivers meet the sea, let us renew the alliance between humanity and nature. We can change by choice, together. Now it is up to all of us.
Distinguished delegates, friends and colleagues, it is my pleasure to invite Simon Steele, UNFCCC Executive Secretary, to address the plenary.
Mr. President, Excellencies, 10 years ago in Paris, we were designing the future, a future that would clearly see the curve of emissions bend downwards. Colleagues, welcome to that future. The emissions curve has been bent downwards because of what was agreed in halls like this with governments legislating and markets responding. But I'm not sugarcoating it. We have so much more work to do. We must move much, much faster on both reductions of emissions and strengthening resilience. The science is clear. We can and must bring temperatures back down to 1.5 degrees Celsius after any temporary overshoot. Lamenting is not a strategy. We need solutions. We find ourselves here in Belém at the mouth of the Amazon, and we can learn a lot from this mighty river. The Amazon isn't a single entity, rather a vast river system supported and powered by over 1,000 tributaries. To accelerate implementation, the COP process must be supported in the same way, powered by the many streams of international cooperation. Because individual national commitments alone are not cutting emissions fast enough. We don't need to wait for late NDCs to slowly trickle in, to spot the gap and design the innovations necessary to tackle it. Not one single nation among you can afford this, as climate disasters rip double digits off GDP. To falter whilst mega droughts wreck national harvests, sending food prices soaring, makes zero sense economically or politically. To squabble while famines take hold, forcing millions to flee their homelands. This will never be forgotten as conflicts spread. While climate disasters decimate the lives of millions, when we already have the solutions, this will never, ever be forgiven. The economics of this transition are as indisputable as the costs of inaction. Solar and wind are now the lowest cost power in 90% of the world. Renewables overtook coal this year as the world's top energy source. Investments in clean energy and infrastructure will hit another record high this year, with investments in renewables outstripping fossil fuels 2 to 1. So what needs to be decided here in Belém to match the opportunities with the scale of the crisis we face? Because we have already agreed we will transition away from fossil fuels. Now's the time to focus on how we do it fairly and orderly, focusing on which deals to strike to accelerate the tripling of renewables and doubling energy efficiency. We've already agreed to deliver at least 300 billion in climate finance, with developed countries taking the lead. We now need to put the Baku to Belém roadmap to work to start moving towards the 1.3 trillion. We've already agreed a global goal on adaptation. We now need to agree on the indicators that will help speed up implementation to unleash its potential. We've already agreed that transition pathways must be inclusive and just, covering whole economies and societies. Now we must agree on concrete steps to turn aspirations into actions. We've already agreed on a technology implementation program. Now let's set it in motion. Strong and clear outcomes on all of these issues are essential. This is how we signal to the world that climate cooperation is delivering results. In Belém, we've got to marry the world of negotiations to the actions needed in the real economy. The action agenda is not a nice to have. It is mission critical. More than that, it is entirely in every nation's enlightened self-interest to do so. Every gigawatt of clean power cuts pollution and creates more jobs. Every action to build resilience helps save lives, strengthen communities, and protect the global supply chains that every economy depends on. This is the growth story of the 21st century, the economic transformation of our age. Those opting out or taking baby steps face stagnation and higher prices, while other economies surge ahead. To paraphrase President Roosevelt over a century ago, it's not the critic who counts, or the one who points out where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to those who are actually in the arena with their faces marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strive valiantly. But friends, let me be clear, in this arena of COP30, your job here is not to fight one another. Your job here is to fight this climate crisis together. Paris is working to deliver real progress. Let's not forget that. But friends, we must strive valiantly for more. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. We're now going to see a short video.
A Amazônia não é Eldorado.
Its flying rivers breathe life into the sky. Its trees keep the heartbeat of the world. Its peoples hold an ancient knowledge, answers for today and for what lies ahead. Birds, fish, roots, soils, waters are our oldest relatives. Sacred beings guarding the secret of renewal. This living body mirrors the world's truths. In this realm of waters, cultures meet and burst into life. The future is calling. Belém, my ancestral ground. This is the cup of truth. Stand for life. My name is Fafa de Belém. I am a singer, an activist, but before anything else, a woman from the Amazon. Thank you all who have come to see us. Thank you, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, for having brought the world to look at the people who live under the canopies of these trees. And Ambassador Andrea Correa to Lago and other authorities, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Tenho o cheiro do patichuli e o gosto do tabereba. Eu sou açaí e cobra grande. O curupiracim saiu de mim, saiu de mim, saiu de mim. Ministra Marina Silva, sei dançar o carimbó, do siriá e do lundu. Caboclo lá de Cametá e índio do Xingu. Sim, Recebam com muito carinho nossa ministra da Cultura, uma grande artista brasileira, colega de todos nós, Margareth Menezes. Uma palavra de amor, um paladar. Emoriô deve ser alguma coisa de lá. O sol, a lua, o céu, pra Oxalá. Emoripá, Emoriô. Margareth Menezes. Emoripá, Emoriô. Emoriô deve ser uma palavra na boca, uma palavra de amor, um paladar. Paladar. Emoriô deve ser alguma coisa de lá. O sol, a lua, o céu, pra Oxalá. Emoripá, Emoriô. Emoriô. Emoripá, Emoriô. Salve a lua, salve o sol, salve a floresta, salve a humanidade, salve a Amazônia. O futuro da Amazônia é agora. Emoriô. Emoriô. Emoripá. Emoriô. 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 Emoripá. Emoriô. Emoripá. Emoriô. Salve a floresta, salve a Amazônia. Salve a Amazônia, salve o Brasil. Salve as florestas tropicais. Salve a COP, salve a Amazônia. Salve e salve, salve. Salve a humanidade, salve a Amazônia. E salve a cultura popular.
Well, I extend my thanks to the singer Fafá de Belém, who is an icon of Brazilian music and somehow the cultural ambassador of Pará. But Margareth Menezes, who came in second, is not only a distinguished musician, but she's also the Minister of Culture of President Lula. Distinguished delegates, friends and colleagues, it is my pleasure to invite Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, President of Brazil, to address this plenary.
I would like to say, after greeting my dear wife, Janja, and after greeting my brother, André Corrêa do Lago, and after greeting Simon Steele, Executive Secretary of the Frame Convention of the UN, and greeting all the UN representatives here in this meeting, our governors, our senators, the cabinet ministers of my government, I would like to say to all of you that it's very difficult to talk before we can pay a homage to the state of Pará and the people of the state of Pará, those that came here from other countries to participate in this conference, please pay a lot of attention, because you're going to participate in an event in the state that has a wonderful people. You're going to see men and women that are very joyful, highly educated and polite, that will take care of you in this city as you were never taken care of before. I would like to thank to my team from the Chief of Staff, represented also by Governor Helder Barbalho, for making this achievement to hold the COP meeting in the heart of the rainforest in the state of Pará and in the city of Belém. Please try to benefit from this city, of its joy, of the beauty, and also take benefit from the joyful charm, warmth of men and women that will receive you here, that will host you here. And above all, take benefit of the cuisine of Pará. Here, you're going to eat the food that you never ate anywhere else in the world. Maybe the best fish. And do not forget to eat manisoba. The interpreter could interpret it correctly because it's manisoba, as you pronounce it. And there's a dispute between Bahia and the state of Pará, which manisoba is the best one. And I also would like to say to all of you that to organize COP here, it was so difficult to end with the pollution in the planet. It was much easier to have the COP in a finished city, a city that would have no problem. But we decided to accept the challenge to organize the COP in the state of the Amazon region, to prove that when you have political will, or when you have the will, and you have commitment with the truth, then we can prove that there's nothing possible for man or for women. What is impossible is not to have the courage, the bold, to face the problem. So congratulations to all the delegates here, men and women, government representatives, and to the people of Pará. Congratulations for all of us. This is a lesson of civility. This is a lesson of human greatness, and that the men that go to war, if they were present here at this COP, they would perceive that it's much more cheaper to put $1.3 trillion for us to end with the climate crisis than to put $2 trillion and $700 billion to buy weapons and go to war. For more than 30 years, at the Earth Summit meeting in '92, the leaders of the world gathered in the city of Rio de Janeiro to discuss development and environmental protection. In that moment, multilateralism was experiencing its apex. The world was going to the so-called conference decades, where emerged many great compasses that guided humanity during these 3 decades. Between them came up the concept of sustainable development and the principle of common but shared responsibilities, common but differentiated responsibilities. That is a legacy of the Rio 92. Today, the Climate Convention is back to its home country. It makes the way back to reclaim the enthusiasm that have driven its birth. In the next 2 weeks, Belém will become the capital of the world. Negotiators, governors, mayors, members of the parliament, scientists, civil society organizations will be part of this great and collective endeavor in favor of the planet. To bring COP to the heart of the Amazon was a very difficult task, but a necessary one. The Amazon is not an abstract entity. those that only see forests from above have no knowledge of what goes beneath the trees and its shadow. The biome that is most diverse in the earth that is the home of almost 50 million people, including 400 indigenous people that are dispersed in 9 countries, developing countries that still face immense economic and social challenges. Challenges that Brazil fights to overcome with the same determination that it managed to bypass the logistics adversities that are inherent to organize a conference such as this size. When you leave the city of Belém, the people of the city will continue with the investments in infrastructures that were made here to receive you all. And the world could then say that it now knows the reality of the Amazon tropical forest. In the days that came before this conference, heads of state and of government, ministers of state, representatives of international organizations, and of civil society gathered during the Belém Summit meeting for climate. We launched a tropical Forest Forever Fund. It's an innovative facility that in just one day was invested $5.5 billion in investments. We adopted collective commitments. First, integrated handling of fire. Second, the right to land ownership of the indigenous people and traditional peoples, to quadruple the production of sustainable fuel, the creation of a coalition on carbon markets, and the alignment of climate action to fight hunger and absolute poverty. And more, at the fight against environmental racism. The Belém Summit was the arrival point of a long road that Brazil invited the international community to follow this long and winding road during the presidencies of the G20 and the BRICS. The synthesis of the elements that we gathered during this trajectory is contained in the so-called call to action that we launched during the summit meeting, and that was a contribution to the debates for this COP and beyond the COP. Climate change is not a threat of the future. It is already a tragedy of the present time. The Melissa hurricane that hit hard the Caribbean region and the tornado that reached the state of Paraná in the south of Brazil have left fatal victims and a trail of destruction. Droughts, fires in Africa and Europe, the floods in South America and in Southeast Asia, the increase of the global temperature is spreading pain and devastation, especially amongst the most vulnerable populations. COP30 will be the COP of truth. In the era of fake news and misinformation, the obscurantists reject not only the evidence by science, but also the multilateralism progress. They control algorithms, sow hatred, and spread fear. They attack institutions, they attack science and universities. Now it's the moment to impose a new defeat to the denialists. Without the Paris Agreement, the world would suffer with a catastrophic warming up of almost 5 degrees till the end of this century. So we're moving to the right direction, but at the wrong speed. At this pace, we would advance to a threshold that is higher than the 1.5 global temperature if we keep this pace. And this, to break away from this barrier, is a risk that we cannot take. Dear friends, our call to action is split in 3 parts. And on the first part, I make an appeal to those countries should abide to their commitments. And this means to formulate and implement the NDCs, the national determined contributions that will be ambitious. Then second, to assure financing, technology transfer, and capacity building for the developing countries, and to give the due attention to adaptations to the effects of the climate change. On the second part, I call the world leaders to accelerate their climate action. We have presented the roadmap for humanity so that in a planned and fair way we can overcome the reliance on fossil fuel, and we can stop with that and reverse the deforestation, mobilize resources for this end. Advance demands a more robust global governance to assure that words can be translated in deeds. The proposal of creation of a climate council linked to the General Assembly of the UN is a way to face this challenge and give it the political stature that it deserves. In the third part, I call the international community to place people in the core of the climate agenda. Global warming could push millions of people to hunger and poverty, and that we can have setbacks of decades of advancement. The unproportional impact of climate change on women, Afro descent, migrants, and marginalized groups that should be taken into account in the adaptation policies. It is fundamental to recognize the indigenous people territories and traditional communities in the efforts for mitigation. In Brazil, 13% of the territory are demarcated land for peoples indigenous. Maybe it's not much. We should have a fair transition, needs to contribute to reduce the asymmetries between the global south and global north forged during centuries of emissions. Climate emergency is a crise of inequality. It exposes and exacerbates what is unacceptable. It deepens the perverse logic of those that want to live with dignity and those that can live with dignity and those that should die. To change this choice, it is to give a chance to the future that cannot be dictated by tragedy. The lack of hope could extinguish the hopes of the youth. We owe to our sons and daughters and grandsons the opportunity to live in an earth that is possible to keep a dream. The Yanomami shaman Davi Kopenawa said that the thought of the city is obscured and smoked, obstructed by the noise of the cars and of the machineries. So I hope that serenity of the forest will inspire all of us to clarify our necessary thought to see what needs to be done. A good COP30 for all. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado, Presidente Lula.
Thank you, President Lula.
Distinguished delegate, this meeting of the COP is hereby suspended. The CMP is hereby suspended, and the CMA is hereby suspended, all for a few minutes.
Yeah. Excellencies will change. Excellency delegates, we will take a pause of 3 minutes and then we shall resume the sessions. We shall take a pause for 3 minutes and thereafter we will resume the session. So please take your respective seats for us to proceed in the next 3 minutes. Thank